good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk. I'd like to acknowledge that tonight I'm speaking from the land of the Camaragal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and also to any Aboriginal people who may be watching this at some point. So the topic tonight is karma, synchronicity and change, the divine energy link. So this is, tonight's talk is actually a very, very spiritual. And if you at any point need to ask questions, please interrupt me. I consider these sessions to be interactive as you wish to make them. You can also, if you prefer, just jot your questions down and save them till the end, but I'm more than happy to be interrupted. So just to introduce this topic, which is very much about energy and the, fascinating ways that energy interacts with our lives. I just begin by saying that for those of you who haven't come to these sessions before, that the very basic rules of energy or laws of energy is that energy connects with energy and energy has no boundaries. And we are energy. Energy is life force. So all human beings are energy, are life force, and in fact, everything is energy. Energy is in every aspect of nature, every life form, in our environment, the rocks, our life force, the plants, the ocean, the rain, the ozone, everything around us, everything that you can see in the world around us is energy. And because energy connects with energy and energy has no boundaries, you will, walk into a forest or go down to the ocean and feel a really healing and therapeutic effect from the energy in those beautiful natural environments where we can get a huge, wonderful blast of negative ions. And also the visual connection to the environment is very important because it changes our brain chemistry, the energy field of nature. Because we connect with it, we can't not connect with it. It changes our brain chemistry and makes us much more relaxed and less stressed, brings our anxiety levels down if they are indeed a little bit high. And so
I'll interrupt. Can I just add something? I think also what you're talking about is forest therapy in a sense as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's now quite a big thing, isn't it? Going for a forest bath.
Yeah, that's it.
There's nothing new about it. Human beings have been doing it ever since we landed on the planet.
Yeah.
And but somebody coined the phrase, and so they've now invented walking in the forest as therapy.
And it always was,
and it always was, yes, indeed. So I'm talking about tonight about karma. Now, if you haven't sort of studied karma, all that word means is action. So the law of karma is the law of action. And at the most fundamental level, because we are energy, we are life force, and our life force or essence takes a body, and the life force or essence in the body must perform action. We must form action to sustain our livelihood, etc., etc. And so the quality of our actions determines to a huge extent the quality of our life. If our actions, in other words, are of a very high integrity, moral integrity, if the intention behind our actions, the motivation behind our actions is pure and beneficent and benevolent, then that energy will come back to us, because what we give, so we receive. Everything we put into action, into motion, does come back to us. And as Isaac Newton discussed in his law of relativity, it comes back in an equal and opposite manner. So it's very important, if we're wanting to improve the quality of our lives and our relationships, then understanding karma is a really, really important foundation for our personal growth and our general improvement in our lives. So I am just going to share my screen with you. Okay, brings the temperature down, doesn't it? Already. So, as I said, tonight's talk is going to go into some quite sort of deep areas of synchronicity and karma. And I do want you to ask me questions if you think, what the hell is she talking about? Just know that you can. Questions are very welcome. I like them, actually. Okay, so first of all, what is synchronicity? Synchronicity occurs in our lives when we seem to be in the right place at the right time, and things just become really coherent and fall into place. You know that feeling when the planets seem to be lined up for me to get whatever it is that needs to be happening in my life. Whether I thought it needed to be happening or not, everything kind of goes bang, 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 bang. So synchronicity, as we see these lines, they're energy lines. And those intersections, those lines are going in random directions. However, the points at which they intersect are points of synchronicity. Now, when someone is not, hasn't developed their intuitive understanding, in other words, their spiritually intuitive understanding of themselves and of their life and of others, they could completely miss these intersections. Completely. And that those moments of synchronicity, the person won't actually recognise them. And so those points of synchronicity are points that open up for us the opportunity for change. They're dynamic moments in life. And, you know, things have to be lined up. Things have to be in the right place for change to occur. And so there are many times when those lines will intersect. And there may be times when there are significant shifts for the person, for the whole community, for the whole world. And it is reflected at all levels until all those lines cross at the same point. Significant change cannot occur. Synchronicity facilitates change. And until people understand the concept of synchronicity, they will not see that situations in their lives are actually really significant, that certain situations. And so what we need to do is understand the point. And here's the point. The point is a very powerful thing because what it does, it gives clarity. When we get the point, we have immense clarity opens up to us. And this is where synchronicity occurs. The idea of synchronicity is to facilitate the point. And there is also a time when people can go one way or another. To go to the point brings really deeply significant change, what we will call massive life-changing transformation. If we go to the point energetically, we must go recognize it and embrace it and go to it. But if we move away from the point, what do you think might happen?
Well, we miss it, that opportunity. We deviate from the point, and therefore we're not in line or in sync with the flow.
Very good. Very.
Can it also be a time where if you miss it, you actually feel stuck? So there's a part of you intrinsically are aware you need change.
Very
but you
good.
actually miss it, so you actually have that feeling of being stuck.
Yep.
Would that line up?
Absolutely right on the hot tap, my dear.
Mm-hmm.
If we move away from the point, nothing changes. It keeps everything the same. And yes, that's called being stuck. Yes. And it's quite unpleasant. Mm-hmm. Most people don't like being stuck.
No.
And look, this is how karma works. Now, this is deep stuff here. Mm. We create karma by creating the tendency or the sanskara, and that is the Hindu term is sanskara. In English, we say it's like an innate tendency of always moving away from the point. Mm. And if we always move away from the point, then we will create karma by doing that. We will also create karma by moving to the point and into the point and embracing the change
can I also say, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Say, like, and also sometimes you have to be ready for that change. Otherwise, you do miss it, the point.
You do,
totally.
Danielle. Totally. You're right on it.
Yeah.
So if we don't change, we will just get more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And we might not particularly like what the same is. Why do you think people turn away from the point?
Mm-hmm.
It feels uncomfortable.
Not comfortable. And it can be absolutely subconscious.
Yeah.
It's fear.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's fear.
100%. I agree with that. Totally.
And who hasn't done it? Hello? We've all done it many times. Mm-hmm. And this is why we need to make our fears very conscious and work with them. Really, really understand what fear is about, because it is totally a construction of the ego.
Mm.
Fear is we call it a false emotion. It is does not come from the essential self, it comes from the ego. It's created in the central nervous system. It's a reaction. And so the ego, the construction is the construction of the false self, and it is totally false.
Mm-hmm. A mind construction. Mm.
Yeah, it is. It's a construction of the mind. And the mind is hijacked by ego. The ego works through the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the heart is a whole different energy center. Mm-hmm. And so we need to work on ourselves from that heart, place in our heart, because there's great wisdom there, and an ability to tune into our intuition. And so the point is the seeing, the actual seeing when things change. The crossroads come before the point. Some people always remain at the crossroads, and this is a matter of choice. Nothing is freed up until change happens. When change happens, there's a huge release of energy, isn't there?
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, we recently had an enormous change in this country.
Mm-hmm.
It was a change of government. Now, what an enormous release of energy happened overnight, did it not? So much energy was released. And so because things can't be freed up until change happens, this is the risk factor when we turn away from change, because there's no change without change.
Mm.
And this also alludes to the energy field. While the energy field remains the same, nothing changes. When the energy field changes, many things will shift at once. And this is synchronicity. Many things need to come into alignment. And this presents the soul with choices. Here, this is what it is all about. This is total responsibility. There's no avoiding, no evading, and no holding off. Choice carries heavy responsibility because it creates a spontaneous energy that is released and sometimes unleashed. Whether deliberate or by omission, the energy is released. If a person abdicates their responsibility to make the choice, the energy can still be released. This is the law of karma. What that means is that something will change anyway. And even if that person does abdicate responsibility. So this is the law of karma, and it is meticulous. It cannot be changed. It is an energy field in and of itself. And it's very logical to the mind. People cannot avoid it because they don't want to believe it. It still happens. A person may want to run, but there is no escape. Not from the energy field. They can run away from someone or from a situation, but they can't escape the energy field. They take it with them. It goes with them, like their own aura or shadow. And it can be quite confronting to that person, but even here lies the choice. And even here, the choice is going to create energy. It is a perfect mechanism.
Jude, can I just ask?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm just thinking, if you move along with the synchronicity, even if it doesn't feel pleasant because of the fear of the unknown or fear of change or whatever, does it stand that the outcome, if you move with synchronicity, even if it doesn't feel pleasant at the time, does it work that the outcome would be positive because you have actually moved with that energy field, as opposed, can we determine that the outcome could be quite negative if you turn away from that synchronicity? Does that work energetically as an outcome?
Of course. This is what energy is all about. And getting this deep understanding of energy is really, really important. Because the worst thing we can do, and we do it through fear, is that we will block change. And we will do it subconsciously, and we'll do it unconsciously, and we'll do it consciously. And this is why it's so, rule number one in life is get into the flow. The moment I want a particular outcome in a situation, or I'm walking along a path and I want certain things to happen, guess what I'm doing? I'm blocking the energy.
Yes.
Because, and you know, this is why the whole kind of new age psychology is such rubbish, where people think, oh, you know, I've just got to kind of imagine what it is I want and it will come to me.
Yeah, no.
You know, I'll just do these affirmations and that's what I'll be. Look, doesn't work.
Yeah.
The reality is it's wishful thinking. And what that wishful thinking will do is it will block what is meant to happen. And you will start unconsciously, subconsciously, and consciously excluding and deliberately blocking what is meant to be happening, because you're putting walls everywhere, energetic walls.
Sorry, Jude.
When we're in the flow, we're open to what is. We just allow ourselves to be carried where it is we need to be going. This doesn't mean that I shouldn't be making decisions in my life. You know, obviously I have to take responsibility for my actions. And so this is why belief, choice, action are the most pivotal and important thing that I need to understand about me and my karma and my life. What I believe in is important because I will make my life choices according to my beliefs. And my actions will be initiated or motivated by my choices. And this, sends me on a whole direction in life. I've made this choice instead of that choice. So I've chosen to go this way instead of that way. And, these paths may lead in totally opposite directions. And so this is why synchronicity is such a perfect mechanism, because it's a point at which, when everything's aligned, it's telling me I'm in the flow. Everything can fall into place now because I'm not blocking anything. It's exciting. It's dynamic. I love change and I love the unknown, actually.
Mm.
I think sometimes my own personal form of insanity, but but to me, it's great not to know where I'm going or, what's happening. At some point, you'll work it out. There'll be clues. It'll become clear. And so this is why we need to go to the point, because it opens the way. And it takes deep willingness and a huge amount of courage. When you come to the point, you cross over to the other side. You feel differently, you see differently, you make decisions differently. But you must never go back to the other side. And this is the challenge. It's where we cross the river. Don't know if any of you have read Siddhartha. If you haven't, for God's sake, read that book by Herman Hesse. It's a tiny little book. It is the most beautiful creation. And he talks about...
Yes, Jude, I've read that book.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's excellent, yeah.
I've read it
I recommend anyone reading it, yeah.
I've read it so many times. I absolutely love it.
So nice, yeah.
And it's a gift. It's Herman Hesse's gift to us. Yes. I think he had a bit of help writing it, quite honestly.
Judy, can you spell the name of the book? Sorry.
Herman Hesse.
Name of the book?
Oh, Siddhartha. S for Sally.
Yeah.
I. D for David, 2 Ds. A for Apple. R for rat.
Robert, yeah.
T for Teddy. H. A.
A, yeah.
A for Apple. Siddhartha and Herman Hesse, Hesse. It's an absolute classic. But one of the things that he uses very symbolically in that book is when Siddhartha crosses the river and the boatman takes him across. And the boatman is this very, very simple person who is really wanting to attain complete self-realization, is a very holy person, and who is in meditation all the time, and these absolute jewels fall out of his mouth. And so he takes Siddhartha. Siddhartha arrives at the point and the boatman takes him across, and the river is all of these images are so symbolic, because that the river symbolises that crossing point between the physical and the spiritual, between the mundane and the sublime. And and it is where we cross from one dimension to another, from the physical dimension to the spiritual dimension. So it creates, when we make that crossing, this creates a new and different energy. Now, something we hear a lot about in this country from our First Nations people is, they talk about songlines. And I'm sure all of you know basically know what songlines are. And Aboriginals are aware of energy fields intersecting and interacting. They're aware of this because they're so in touch with the energy. They're so energetically attuned, and it's so intuitive that they experience the energy of the land. But cognitively, they do not know what they know. They feel it. They experience it. And Aboriginals do not put all these things into words. They may paint, it may appear in their paintings, in their dance, in their creative expression, because they're very creative people. But they don't write, long documents and Bibles and things about what they know, because their way of knowing is not the way ours is. We're culturally so different. This is why we can't understand Aboriginal people. They are actually much better placed to understand us, because they do everything through energy and experience and that very deep, intuitive inner knowing, and they observe. They're great observers. And so when people step over the line, when they get to the point and they cross that line and they cross to the other side, the only obscurity for people is the understanding of dimensions and energy fields. If people can accept the abstract, they are well on their way. Lateral thinking makes it easy. It is a function of our consciousness. Now, we are all, every single one of us, white fellas here, is trained to think in a linear manner. And this is what makes everything so hard for us, because the human mind is not a linear processor. Energy does not move in straight lines. Energy actually moves in circles. And so this is where abstracting, understanding things in an abstract way, which is what our all Indigenous people do. They're all in touch with energy. They're very intuitive, because they haven't been messed up with a Western style education that's completely screwed up their understanding of energy. And so it's like the obvious is a place where no one looks. And it's right in front of us. this is, you know, what Fritz Perls called neurosis. It's when you can't see the obvious, you can't see what's right in front of you. And us white fellas are really good at this because our Western education trains us this way. But Indigenous people are much more in touch in the sense that we are not. And so they are not sort of disengaged like we are. The way we're educated disengages us. It makes us spiritually disconnected because we believe we're a body. Mm-hmm. We think everything is linear, which it's not. We're, you know, carefully trained in Newtonian mechanics to think that everything is linear and that we are physical beings. But
and it's all cognitive in the head.
It's all cognitive. It's all cognitive.
It's all very intellectual and all of that. And so we miss the part that's within us, our heart. And
that's right.
Can't fully embody.
That's right.
Like, you know,
because
like
a Western education is for the left brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so our left brain gets absolutely stuffed to the max. And the rest of us dies in the process. It's actually very damaging. Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking before about ego, about the fear that drives us. And fear disengages the will. And this becomes highly problematic for many people because our will is part of our spiritual function. And to have an engaged, connected will, a will that is engaged with our spiritual essence, is so important. When the will becomes disengaged, we can do really dumb things. And so it is a deep sanskar to let fear overcome the will.
I feel disconnected.
Yep. That's what, and this is what leads to our spiritual disconnection. It starts when we're pretty young. You know, by probably around 4 or 5, once we start going to school or play school, that's when it starts. And walking through the fear strengthens and invigorates. It revitalizes the will. You know, you know how people will go and do a fire walk. Well, look good on them. That's all I can say. Good on them. If that solves all their fear problems, I'm so happy for them. But we need to do it not in the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense. And we need to name the boogeyman and call it. Fear, whatever it is we're afraid of, I would say will probably never happen unless we, you know, we fear it so much that we actually bring it on and make it happen. We always have a choice. And so when we press, you know, we may be afraid, but when we decide to prove that fear wrong,
Mhm.
I would say that's what will happen. Take the action.
Mhm.
You know, be afraid, but do it anyway.
Mm.
You know, that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, started a huge movement.
Yes.
And call its bluff, because otherwise we let fear rule our lives and the energy's just blocked everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, people who are fear-driven and let fear rule their lives, they become very, very diminished spiritually, very contracted. But it is the soul's choice to do this. And so we need to walk through our fears, because it makes us so strong. You know, it's when steel is put in the fire and bashed with a hammer, it becomes forged, you know, becomes forged, and forged steel is so strong. And so this is how we make ourselves very, very strong, is by, you know, not walking on hot coals, but walking through the fire of fear. Just walk through it. And you realise that there's nothing there. So our energy is deeply linked to our brain waves, and both reflect each other. The brain can only effectively support with clarity and in an interactive process one being. And so we need to, in this sense, being fractured splits us. And so pulling ourselves in, becoming whole, fear splits us. Fear makes us very fractured. And so when we meditate, it's very integrating. And it pulls us into center. And it integrates that fragmentation. And so when we integrate that fragmentation, our brain can start really working and support us so effectively and with so much clarity. And so the vibrational content of information that we receive from the very highest spiritual sources, it resonates with those who will accept it and those who are open to it and who can tune into it. And it resonates so strongly that our acceptance is activated. When there's a wall, an energy wall, it will not resonate for us. That higher vibrational content that is available to us. And, you know, I'm a meditator, so I'm going to, you know, obviously use this reality, this meditative reality, that it opens these doors for us. And it tears down these walls. Those walls will just dissolve. And because walls will not allow that vibrational content to resonate for us. The wall's construction is always fear.
Mm-hmm.
And for many people, it's unconscious fear, and they remain deeply asleep. But we're here.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when I meditate, my experience is at that time, anything is possible. So that goes along with what you were saying. When you meditate, it can break down those walls.
Yep.
Those constructs, those walls that fear puts up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And the more we do it, the more becomes possible. And, you know, I'm sure I've said this to you before, but when the outer life of a person is amazing and extraordinary, the inner life shrivels. When the outer life is plain and ordinary, the inner life becomes amazing and extraordinary. We cannot have both. And the ego likes an outer life. It likes to be flashy and, you know, make a splash. It loves attention. And, but when we make spiritual choices, we go in the opposite direction. And so the outer life, you know, look at Buddha, look at the Buddha, look at the Mother Teresa, look at Gandhi, look at the people who've modelled this for us. They become very simple, you know, in their lives. Gandhi had one set of clothes. And when he washed them, he had nothing to wear, but he had a towel. And that was, you know, this attitude of renunciation, which as people become spiritually inclined, then they are drawn to this life of simplicity, this outer life of simplicity. And I'll call it renunciation, where they don't want lots of possessions and, you know, the latest trendy thing and this and that and the smartwatch and the this and the that and the, you know, all of the labels and the things that people who have no understanding of self-realisation love all these external identifiers. They identify with the labels and the fashions and the trends and the technology and the, you know, the this and that. But the person who is becoming self-realised, who is self-realised, has no interest in any of that. They just want simplicity, because it's the inner life that is so important, not the outer life. And what enriches the soul is the inner life, you know. And
Jude, can I just say, for me, I feel my inner life has, like the inner life mirrors the outer. Whatever is in comes out, and it's always the inner first. I mean, this is just in my experience.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So the outer life will mirror the inner.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about the divine energy link. It's my next slide. Silence. Silence is very important in all of this. And when we're in a meditative state, a deeply, deeply meditative state, and we discover the doorway to the silence, we will enter the dimension of silence. And the dimension of silence has the highest vibrational frequency of any dimension. And because we've been trained in linear thinking, we don't actually understand the dimensions of energy because we're used to thinking in hierarchical ways, top to bottom, you know, height, breadth and width are the three physical dimensions. But when we get out of those three physical dimensions, when we get into the spiritual dimensions, it's not about height, breadth and width. The spiritual dimensions flow in, around and through everything, including our bodies, the walls, through everything, the environment, and the sound through the universe, the sound wave through the universe, which is the dimension of silence. And it has, look, scientists have picked this up, or quantum scientists have picked it up. The sound wave is 9.8 hertz. And it is God's hertz. It is the vibration of the silence. It is the vibration of God, and it goes right through the universe. And this is why a lot of people think that God is omnipresent. And it's because of the hertz, Hertz.
Yeah.
God is not actually everywhere and in everything. God is not actually omnipresent. It's the vibration. It's the sound wave that is everywhere. And if you've got the right equipment, you can pick it up. So we get into it through meditation. We get into this flow, into this dimension of silence. People think God is omnipresent because life force is everywhere. It is. Energy is everywhere. And people pick up on the energy and they think, oh, well, God is everywhere. But actually, it's just a lack of understanding brought about through all this linear thinking and training of the mind. So the other thing about the 9.8 hertz, it's an amazing, to get into that vibration affects everything. When we get into it, it changes our DNA. It heals our diseases, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. When we get into the silence, we are instantly in a state of healing, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But, I mean, karma is karma. People still have to deal with their stuff. We all have to deal with our stuff. It's not a magic kind of cure, magic panacea. But it does put us instantly into a state of healing. And so this vibration of God is the divine energy link. It's the energetic tuning fork of the universe. And when we're able to tune in, we've got this divine tuning fork which pulls us, which tunes our own vibration, and gets us right into the vibration that we absolutely need to be in for our deep healing and for getting on track. Because when we're in this vibration, when we're in this flow, we will see the point. We won't miss it.
Yeah.
Even mental illness is positively affected by being in a high energy field. And so when we're in a really high energy field, we're beyond the control of people, systems in the physical universe. And this is an amazing thing because when we're under the control of influences and elements in the physical sense, and it may be some kind of system we're in. It could be a family system. It could be a system in a community that we engage with. It could be a political system in our country. But control suffocates and destroys. And
any form of it.
yes.
Even self-control, like controlling ourselves in our minds. And
yes, self-control needs to be the right kind of control, not
I mean, yeah, I meant if the mind is trying to take over you and control you, that's not always a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not about taking power from others. What we're about is empowering others, empowering ourselves and empowering others. And this is what happens when we let go.
Yeah.
So a system that is misguided, it may be a spiritual system, it may be a religious system. I mean, look, we see it all the time in the religious and spiritual worlds, that a system will become misguided, by a guru who is wanting self-gratification through followers, or wanting to control people. Remember the Jim Jones debacle, that terrible scenario where they all drank Kool-Aid and died. In Ghana, that happened in Ghana, in the forest. So when the system is misguided and someone in power is trying to control the people, they do not empower. They only empower those who refuse to think for themselves and give over their self-sovereignty. It is an easy road for many people with little responsibility who want to be sheep. So to follow the rules equally without thought, without forethought, without consideration and without critical analysis is a trap. We need to think critically. We need to learn to think critically. And this is taught very actively at university in the arts and humanities. And it's a very important ability. We must, in spiritual circles, we will call it the power to discriminate and to judge. But it's very accurate critical thinking. We need to do this because we don't want to get trapped.
Mm-hmm.
We must consider wisely our motive or somebody else's motive. Otherwise, it's a trap.
Mm.
Do you consider one's motive when being suffocated? And without considering motivation, we will suffocate without knowing it. When we fall under the control of a system or another, without knowing it, we will suffocate. We will be starved of oxygen. But for many people who want to blindly follow, it is the easy way. And if somebody rocks the boat, if somebody names what's happening or names the truth, they will be rejected by that community or by that group because they have named, in naming the truth, they have done the unthinkable. They've shattered the false belief system. And people don't want that. They want to be blind. So sheep consciousness is not soul consciousness. A person with sheep consciousness will stay asleep. This is the truth. A sheep will follow blindly to its death without questions or without awareness. You know, it's the lemmings, the analogy of the lemmings, you know, just following each other off the cliff to their death. And it's simply the way it is. So to wake up is a personal choice. Many, and this is the point, many choose to stay asleep. Being able to see the future can destroy the present. So, through spiritual endeavour, we must come to know ourselves very intimately. This takes many years, and it takes a willingness to never resile from embracing the truth and embracing the parts of us we would prefer to keep hidden, to never own or see, and to surrender completely to the truth and to our moral compass, our moral integrity. Acceptance and integration of all the parts of me leads to transformation, to wholeness, to a self who has insight and foresight, who thinks intuitively in a divine way and is never caught up in the traps of systemic control, of groupthink, or commonly held false group belief systems. This soul is the change maker, the boat rocker, the speaker of wisdom and truth, someone who stands alone but will always stand with the group, someone who is self-sovereign, who leads with a divine intellect and soul-conscious vision. And so this is a self-realised person who is willing to become completely soul-conscious and to surrender completely all of their body consciousness or all of their ego consciousness. And so the soul that is willing to do this is a soul completely tuned in to the forces, to the movement of karma, of synchronicity, and of the transformative forces in their lives. And they will always see the point.
Mm.
So, going into the silence again and again and again is a wonderful way of doing this. So, are there any questions at this point?
Thank you, Jude. That was really lovely. Lovely to hear all that.
Good.
Yeah, very good. Very informative.
Yeah, it's nourishing stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very. Enjoyed that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Jude.
You're so welcome.
And just want to know more about the silence retreat that you're having soon. Or I think you're having at 5 Dock, yes?
Yes, I'm having a silence retreat at 5 Dock on the, and that will be every month. And the first one will be on Thursday, the 21st of June. So if you don't have a flexible schedule like I do, it will be a problem for you, no doubt.
Yes.
But if you want to know more about that, let me know.
Yeah, I want to do the big one in January, though.
Yep.
Put my name down. Please. Thank you.
When the flyer comes out, you get in really fast because it'll fill up usually in about 24 hours.
Yes.
So as soon as you get the email, reply. I can't put people's names down ahead. It has to be a level playing field. Okay.
Just thinking about that synchronicity. Sometimes you know when you're in that synchronicity, but I think other times for me, it's been more when I've come out of the crap and then reflected back and saw it all lining up and go, yeah, that was the way to go.
Yes.
Whereas I think other times you know things are lining up. It feels right. Everything happens so easily.
That's
you just
right.
know you're in that flow. But
yes.
I think sometimes if it's a harder synchronicity, because you may not have felt you've chosen, well, you have in some, obviously you have, but you feel like you haven't had control. I think in that situation I found it's more looking back, you go, yeah, I can see where it's all lined up and why it's happened, and it's for the better. As an experience.
Yes. Being able to tune into these forces is important. And what, as is often the case, before you even know how to tune in, often, you know, what will happen is that doors will open and you just get pushed through. Anyway, something pushes you through.
The force, the life force.
Or you try to climb out of that deep hole that you dug for yourself first.
I've had that experience.
Yeah, and then you get forced through that door when you climb out.
Yeah.
Life.
So true. Okay, well, look, let's finish with a couple of minutes of meditation, which we will do. I'll speak a short commentary and then we'll have a bit of silence. But thanks all for being here.
Thank you, Jude.
And we'll be back next week.
Very good.
I will stay back, right? Linda and myself will stay back. Jude's afterwards.
Yeah, stay back. Stay back.
Okay, thank you.
Will it take long? I'm just on a bit of a time schedule here.
No, Linda, it'll be very quick.
Okay, fabulous.
Okay, so we'll just have some meditation.
Okay.
So just bring your awareness into one point. Move to the inside of your being, letting go of everything on the outside, letting go of the room, letting go of your thoughts, and just feel the energy gathering in the space of your heart. And allow yourself just to move into one point. Just to experience yourself as just a point of energy. And as I realize the point, I am able to automatically move into the unlimited energy field of the divine, where I can become one with the river of love, in the flow allowing myself to be carried and fully supported. In the silence, in the stillness of God.